So I'm Caitlin. I'm a second year computer games programming student. And my aim is to just try and get into the games industry with more of the indie style. So looking at problem solving and games that try and help you understand like emotional situations rather than just the kind of violent games like Call of Duty and things like that.
So would you say that your career or the path that you follow until now have been influenced in some way by being a woman?
Yeah, definitely. Especially since a lot of the time when I've been studying, like I've been the only one in the class that's not a man. So my sixth form class was all guys apart from me, including the teacher. So kind of the certain ideas that I've had and things I've wanted to do have definitely been because I've kind of looked around and gone, no one else seems to be doing this. No one seems to be interested in this, but I know I am, and I know I can like add something to the industry.
So would you say that there is an advantage as a woman being a minority?
Yeah, I'd definitely say like there's like a missing part in the kind of industry that can be filled by having more diversity in the workforce and more women doing stuff. So it can definitely be seen as an advantage to kind of like broaden what's already out there.
Okay, so I know that you are just starting your career, let's say, but do you have any anecdotal experience?
Um, I mean, I've done like a few game jams and things like that. So like tried making more kind of independent games. And definitely when I've been doing that, I've been with teams with mostly like guys in, and seeing the way that like we kind of differ in the way we approach things, even if it's just like how we should go about the problem. It's definitely been better the more diverse the group's been, because we've had so many more different opinions and ideas, which have meant we've got an overall better way of coming about it. Whereas if we'd all had like the same ideas and we'd all come up with the same method because we all had the same kind of experience, it would have ended up being a lot harder to get our final result.
Okay, so what did inspire you to study aim for this?
So when I was younger, I used to play quite a lot of video games. And one of my favourites was the Tomb Raider games, which had a big impact in the fact that no matter who was playing the game, the character you were playing as was a woman. And I always loved that, and the fact that it was so popular despite like that being such an unusual thing at the time inspired me to kind of look into the potential of doing more things like that and having more inclusion, not just in who was doing it, but also on the screens that people were playing on.
Um, you just mentioned something interesting. This is not a question that I had planned, but I will make it anyway. Um, as a consumer of video games, would you say that you can feel or notice this lack of woman? So, for example, you before mentioned about you have some ideas that uh, most men don't tend to have or don't tend to value. Would you say that you have noticed this as a consumer in video games?
There's definitely like a heavier lean to certain kind of thought processes, and also just generally like how life is. So a lot of problems you'll come across in video games, that at least I've played, have often shown a kind of, well, this is a man dealing with this situation and this is how they'd sort it out, which isn't always possible if you're not, because of the way people view you and things like that. So I definitely think as you play games, you can often tell how diverse the writing room and the programmers have been, purely because of the way that it kind of represents the world that you're playing.
That's interesting. Well, so another question is that as a society, not just in video games or computing, but in general, would you say that we have experienced a big change since, let's say, 50 years from now, in what we expect from women when it comes to academical um, success and in STEM careers in particular?
I definitely think like there's been a load of improvement, and it seems to continue to be improving, especially with like there's been so many movements to kind of introduce women who might not have thought about going into a STEM career into actually how they might enjoy it, and like it's definitely been improving, and I think will continue to improve within STEM and just generally academically. People's kind of views are starting to become a lot more equal, which I think is brilliant.
Okay. Well, I'm going back to something you mentioned earlier about the lack of women. Um, and it's something a bit interesting, at least for me. And I wanted to ask you, why you think that there's this lack of women when we look the stats of developed countries, we see that women tend to success more in the education system, and we have more women than men in universities.
I think there's definitely a thing of kind of like trying to prove like that there is that equality, because while you can say that it's equal or like that there's this kind of equality within like STEM or just people going to university, I think there's definitely the kind of, if you go and do it well, you've kind of proved that. And while we're still in the process of kind of trying to make things more equal with gender, there is that kind of element of going, well, now that people are starting to view, oh, well, maybe it is a lot more equal. If loads of people are going about and going like, oh, well, all these women went and got degrees or did this, it kind of shows that it is more equal than just saying it.
Okay, so something that I've been taught and seen from both sides of this, let's say, discussion, is some people arguing that it's not lack of opportunities, but a question of people choosing what they want to do, and other people arguing that it's because lack of opportunities or there's not enough encouragement. What would you say about that?
I mean, there's definitely some element of people have to choose what they enjoy. And if there isn't a lot of women that want to go into a STEM subject, then you can't like force anyone. But there's definitely kind of this midpoint where, yes, there are some women that just don't want to, but there's also a lot of others that might have actually really enjoyed it if they'd been given opportunities earlier to kind of develop the skills. So if like when they were younger, they were doing more science and computing based things in school, they might have found an interest in it that they now don't have because they weren't given as many opportunities with that. And it's definitely improving now to a point where it is often slightly more of the what you want to do rather than like what you didn't have the opportunity for. But there's definitely still a little bit of a kind of inequality that could be balanced.
So apart from improving education in schools, as you mentioned, what do you think that will encourage more people to pursue some careers that are not typically male careers or female careers? And in this case, what do you think that will encourage more women to go into STEM subjects?
Well, just generally making people aware of them, like as well as giving them the opportunity to try them. But there's a lot of things that you just might not know about. So I didn't know that I wanted to do this course at uni until I started looking on websites, and I had to do a lot of research myself to try and find stuff. And some people can't do that due to financial position or whatever. So making it more available to people as just these are potential things to do, so that people can then look at the potential opportunities that could come from it, I think would definitely benefit. And just talking about it more as a kind of neutral area of being like anyone can do these things, and making it just a more of a talking point for people so that people can just be made aware.
Okay, so have you always had this thought process about this, or it's something that it has been developing while you have been experiencing all this?
It's something that I was like vaguely aware of, but then the more I've like experienced things, the more I've kind of started to have more opinions on it and more ideas about how things can be changed to benefit so that women are more involved in and things like that. But the more I've experienced, the more I've kind of become aware of stuff.
So about that, what would you think that would be a benefit of having more women in the video games industry, for example?
I think it for like video games, it would mean that you had like a wider range of games and also the kind of ideas that they come across. So when you're playing a game, as well as having the like issues that men can often identify with, also having ones that potentially women might be able to identify with more, so that when people are playing, they feel represented. Because the more people that feel represented by any sort of media, such as video games, the more people are interested in it, and the more people will want to try and play the games, look into me even potentially making them when they grow up. And it kind of can inspire the next generation of people to be making the games. And if the games kind of can be played by anyone, then the people that will look at making them in the future, they'll be made by anyone and there'll be less of that kind of barrier.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is my last question, but it's up to you if you want to answer or not. And it's if you want to say something else or you want to bring a topic that we didn't talk about and you think it's important to talk about.
I think really most of like my thoughts have kind of been covered. It's mainly just the like if we make sure that people are educated, as well as not just making sure women know about things, but also that men are aware of the differences within the like STEM industries, so that when certain things happen, they don't just pass it off as like, oh well, that's normal. They can go, actually, would it be like beneficial for us to have different points of view on this? Would it be better if we had a more diverse team rather than just all of us who have had the same experiences and things? So like having it so people are aware on both sides rather than just trying to inform one side, I think would be really beneficial.
Okay, so would you say that STEM industries in general is doing something or is doing enough in that sense?
I definitely think like things are happening now, like with the Me Too movement and all of the things like that. I definitely think there has been improvement, but it's always that thing of it can always improve more. So little things of even if it's just the people within the industry talking to other people in the industry and making them aware of different situations they might not be, and about, oh, have you heard about how this game has been made that had a more diverse writing room, and this is what the how it was received by the public. Perhaps we should look into doing something more diverse as well, and things like that.